Director of the NF Network, and we would like to welcome you to our webinar series. These webinars have proven to be an excellent way for the NF Network to reach individuals across the country. This evening we're very fortunate to have with us Sandra Kirshner-Weinstein, who is the director of the Neurofibromatosis Camp, Camp New Friends, through Children's National Medical Center. Tonight we will discuss the results of her study on social and emotional development in children with neurofibromatosis. Scientific literature suggests that chronic illness and disabilities in childhood can have a negative impact on quality of life, encouraging greater dependencies and a reduced sense of internal control. This webinar will discuss the value of a neurofibromatosis-specific camp experience that includes improving social skills, daily function, self-concept, and quality of life. We'll hear details of a recent 3-year study conducted by Children's National Medical Center, which demonstrates the benefit of condition-specific camps. The overall for returned campers suggests a positive cumulative impact of continued camp participation with improvements in the domains of social interaction, responsibility, and communication. After the talk this evening, we'll have limited time for questions and answers. There's a box in the right of the control panel which will allow you to type in a question, and you can type that question anytime during the webinar. I will read the questions as time permits. If that control box is in your way, there's an orange rectangular button with an arrow. Click on it, and it'll move it away from the view of the PowerPoint presentation. And now I would like to introduce to you Sandy Kirshner-Weinstein. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you. Okay, you did a great introduction, so you know what we're speaking about tonight. We're going to talk about social and emotional development in children with NF. Please let me know if you have any difficulty hearing me. So our objectives tonight are to speak about social emotional development, look at the core skills of social learning, social emotional competence in children with NF and neurological disorders, assess some of the factors or identify the factors that impact social development, and what we know about resilient children and adults, and how families can help. Let's see if I can move this over. As you know, emotions are about feelings, and feelings are always personal. They vary from one individual to another. They're not always based on what we see or even reality. They can be difficult to talk about and understand. Girls as a group are a little bit better at speaking about feelings, although I must say at the NF camp, a lot of the boys also speak about feelings. Development and experience can clearly impact emotions. Why am I having trouble on this slide? There we go. Emotional development. Many of you have heard of Erik Erikson. He did a tremendous amount of work in the area of emotional development. So when we look at early stages of development, we look at basic trust, and that's the ages of 1 to 2, the development of trust. The result of good development of trust is hope, so keep that in mind. Autonomy versus shame is ages 2 to 4, and the result of learning autonomy versus shame is pride. Initiative versus guilt, ages 3.5 to 6. The result of that is independence. And when we talk about initiative, we talk about a sense of purpose and cooperation. Many of you have seen that with your children as they develop over time. That's the initiative and the development of independence. Industry versus inferiority. That means relating with peers, rules, teamwork, understanding rules, and gaining confidence and feeling competent. That's school-age children. Identity versus diffusion develops into self-awareness, and adolescence is around that time. Again, many of you know these developmental stages, but later on in life, young adulthood, intimacy is another stage of emotional development where love is the result, generativity is caring, and work productivity, and integrity is wisdom. And hopefully we all gain wisdom as we gain age. A whole new field of emotion that is being utilized in assessing people, employees even in the workplace, and healthcare workers with patients is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is about sensitivity, empathy, relationships. So social emotional competency is to be able to identify and accept feelings. Sensitivity to others is empathy, being receptive to verbal and nonverbal cues. So keep that in mind when we talk about social development. And empathy is to identify with the feelings of others so that you can develop relationships and be sensitive to others. Factors or issues that impact social emotional development, competence, and intelligence include social stigma and teasing, or what we call the psychological burden. And all of you have the experience of either living with NF or having a child with NF, and social stigma and teasing can hurt children and be a psychological burden. Cognitive impairments. Cognitive impairments include attentional problems, problem solving and memory difficulties, social understanding and reading of social cues, parental worry and overprotection can reduce independence. Medications, having to live with medication management can cause fatigue and confusion. And sometimes with NF, pain is an issue, and pain can cause social withdrawal and depression. So all these factors and issues can impact the social emotional development of a child over time. Children with NF also have increased learning difficulties. ADHD is much higher among children with NF, anxiety, reduced social skills, again, stigma, pain, and medications. Some studies, some research have looked at children with NF and other neurological conditions to see what are the common issues that tend to limit social development. And these are some of the same: increased risk of social emotional problems, decrease in social initiative, greater loneliness, fewer peer contacts, greater social isolation, socially a little less mature, and this is just a note that the demographics and severity variables do not predict this variance in social competence. However, some of these problems do. So we looked at children and took into account the severity of their condition. So we looked at quality of life, symptom severity relative to quality of life. And we saw that the quality of life was a little different, and emotional functioning was certainly one of the areas that showed a significant difference, as well as physical status, and just overall, children with NF tended to have a reduced quality of life. However, what we saw in our work was that resilience was acted as a protective factor relative to quality of life. So regardless of the severity of the symptoms, so as a group, the quality of life was more impaired with children with NF. However, resilience functioned as a protective factor relative to quality of life. So what we saw was, regardless of severity of symptoms in NF, if the children were resilient, they had a better quality of life, which led us to do more work with the whole issue of resilience. What is quality of life? So we throw out these different terms. So what is quality of life? Quality of life is a person's sense of well-being that stems from the satisfaction or dissatisfaction with the areas of life that are important to them. So it varies from person to person because it's whatever is important to that person. Now, we don't always know what's important to us, so that sometimes part of our work is figuring out what is important in order to have that sense of well-being relative to whatever is important. So again, NF quality of life and resilience reduced. We found NF among children with NF, there was a reduced quality of life. We looked at learning disabilities and attention deficit disorders and saw that they could significantly impact the quality of life. And reduced resilience also impacts quality of life. So when we look at resilience, we're really targeting some of that sense of hope, which, if you remember in Erickson's work, really starts at a very young age, and social skills. So here was a study where we looked at 74 children with NF, and we looked at a comparison of resilience, hope, and perceived social support just with the general population. So the first CD risk is resiliency, hope is HHS, and then perceived social support is the third column. The general population is the dark orange. The light orange is the children with NF. So you can see the difference. There was a significant difference between the general population and children with NF. And there also was a relationship between hope, perceived social support, and resilience. So this is very important. This relationship between hope, resilience, and perceived social support, and that is some of our studies as we're going forward. Hopefully we'll have results from those soon. Resilience. What is resilience? Resilient individuals develop skills to adapt and manage adversities. They learn to be effective self-managers. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So if resilience has that ability to moderate quality of life and impact quality of life so that the severity of condition has less impact, then that is something we should be targeting. And we are. Again, this just is the study where resilience serves as a moderator on quality of life. And you can see resilience was very significant. And I mean, that's exciting. We also saw girls were more resilient, but social emotional skills seem to be the factor that make them a little more resilient. what do we know about resilience? We know from years of looking at resilience that resilient individuals have effective coping strategies. They also socially connect with family and friends. And regardless of what faces them, they find positive meaning in challenging situations. Again, they develop effective coping strategies, they socially connect with family and friends, and they find positive meaning in challenging situations. When we look at some of those critical variables in resilience, as a parent, we know that consistent source of nurturing and emotional supports help to establish trust. And trust helps to establish hope. This sense of hope helps us create meaning for struggle. And we've also seen that a contributing role, if someone contributes to their family even, or to their school, if they contribute to their community, they have a role of a contributing member. It helps to increase a sense of group membership, provides a role identification, and helps develop confidence. Again, these are important things to think about, and I know I'm throwing out a lot, and we will go back to them. When we look at core competencies and targets for social learning, you'll see some overlap. Self-management, issues like, does your child know what medications they take? Do they know how to manage their health care? Do they know when to seek help from others? Do they know the names of their medicines? Do they know how often they should speak with the doctor or go in for return appointments? And do they participate in communicating with the doctor, or does the parent do that? Those are issues relative to self-management. Awareness of others speaks for itself. Awareness of self among others is another area that's a core competence for social learning. As we get older, making responsible decisions and relationship skills developing become part of that social learning. So when you're helping your child, you want to look for ways to encourage this. How can parents and peers help their children? How can we as parents and how can friends help peers? Well, this is part of self-management, becoming knowledgeable about NF and NF Inc. and different organizations that serve children and adults with NF are very important in this way, as well as the clinics. We encourage knowledge about NF and also appropriate disclosure. When do you disclose? How do you disclose to peers, to teachers, to employers, etc.? So appropriate disclosure. Encouraging your children to work with their doctors, and even young adults to work with their doctors and nurses. Developing a support network, connecting with peers, extremely important. Recognizing triggers for anxiety and stress, and looking at ways to manage that, to demonstrate less worry. Acknowledging emotions and learning cues, those social cues. encouraging responsibility and encouraging independence. That's extremely important as our children get older. Recognizing strengths and weaknesses so that if you know you have a learning disability in an area, you can get help with that. If it's an individualized educational plan or a 504 plan, those are important. It really helps the child to at least know their strengths and weaknesses and be able to work with them effectively. Setting goals and learning to be flexible. That's extremely important. Promoting social emotional confidence. As always, knowing yourself, knowing feelings is extremely important. When children are young, there are ways to help them identify their feelings. Oftentimes, kids look towards their parents to let them know how they're feeling. So remember, sometimes you're their mirror. So improving self-awareness and identifying feelings. Recognizing how these feelings influence choices and actions. If you're angry, it's very difficult to make good choices or to act in a way that's responsible. Encouraging sensitivity to the feelings of others or empathy. Some people believe you can't learn empathy, that it's difficult to learn empathy. As a group, I've been doing the NF camp now for 10 years. I think children with NF and young adults are extremely empathic and serve as great role models for each other. Self-management, handling emotions to encourage relationships versus limit them, or to facilitate versus interfering. That's self-management of emotions, which is a little different than self-management of healthcare. But in both situations, you're taking control of yourself. Making responsible decisions. Identifying choices. Evaluating positive solutions. Learning to think long-term consequences of actions, not short-term, although sometimes we start off with short-term, but what is the long-term effect of an action? Developing relationship skills, learning to resolve conflicts and connect with others. Encouraging camps and group membership. This issue, this insider versus being an outsider, is extremely important for learning about yourself and gaining a self-awareness. I think camps for children with chronic health conditions are extremely valuable for many, many different reasons. And literature has shown this, as well as our research. But what we've seen is there are many benefits, including increased knowledge, so knowledge about their health care, knowledge about their condition, like NF, and learning difficulties, increased self-esteem, and self-concept and perception. So feeling better about who they are. And you can see there are many people who have done research on that. Kernan, Ang, Wardy, Punnett, Biggs, Tracy, Thomas, many people have looked at self-esteem. Changed attitude towards health. Breary and Ceylon did tremendous studies, and adaptive coping strategies was mine. where we looked at adaptive coping. If you live with a chronic health condition, can you live well with it? The kids learn that NF doesn't have to stop them from doing what they want to do. Learning what they want to do, developing those goals, is part of what we do as parents. We help them. We get our children to go to the right places, to experience different opportunities, and find something they love. So NF doesn't have to stop me from doing what I want to do, is a quote from one of those campers. We always say, it takes brains to live well with NF. Of course, NF is Camp New Friends. And I think that acknowledging that you do have to be wise in order to live well with a chronic condition is something that we should reinforce every day with our children and young adults. It's very important. Because you do, and most of us, if we live long enough, will face living with a chronic health condition. And in order to live well with it, you have to understand it. You have to be knowledgeable. You have to understand what the triggers are that impact symptoms. And you have to know how to utilize resources and connect with others who can help you. That takes brains. It takes brains to live well with NF. And that's Camp New Friends. So I'm glad to open up to questions. Does anybody have questions?
Well, let me look here. So we kind of have to give people a few minutes to type questions in. I don't see any popping up just yet. But while we're giving people that opportunity, could you tell us a little bit more about what camp will be like this summer? And if people have an interest in camp, how can they find out more about it?
Sure. Camp, if you want to find out about camp, the link is brainycamps.com. I should have put that on here, but it's brainycamps.com. And let me see if I can put it on here. brainycamps.com. And you'll see what weeks we have, as well as some of the priorities that we have. This summer we have a new medical office building opening up. For our campers. At the camp, we do many things. We have support groups every day. We have trainings, educational training by the doctors and the nurses about NF and some of the issues, the genetics, the social emotional issues that a number of our campers and young adults face. We talk about community resources. We speak about disclosure. And more than anything else, what we do is we develop friendships, encourage social connections so that everybody can continue to stay connected throughout the year. The other thing we're going to be doing this year is an online support group. So if somebody has an interest in that, they can contact us.
Well, that's wonderful. You can also find a link to it from the NF Network website. We have a link to the camp on there as well. And then somebody's asking the question here, Sandy, at what age do camps start? And then talk a little bit more about like the location and things like that for camp and some of the resources to help the families to get to camp.
Okay. The camp is in West Virginia. So it's about 15 minutes outside of Winchester, Virginia. Most of the kids fly in. If they come from other areas, they fly in to Dulles, and we pick everybody up and take them to the camp. It's about 45 minutes from the camp. Actually depends on traffic. 45 minutes to an hour, I'd say, from the camp, from Dulles Airport to the camp. Some kids come in by train. We also will pick them up. We have scholarships. Actually, NF Inc. is one of our great partners in raising scholarship funds for children to attend camp. And we also raise scholarship funds for children. So we don't like to turn anybody away because of their inability to pay. We ask parents to help in whatever way they can. But the camps are a strong, strong community for many of our campers and counselors over the 10 years that since they started.
All right, Sandy, here's another question. And they say, do you personally have a child with NF, or what made you get involved with the camps for NF? My daughter is terrified to go to camp. She's 8. Oh, I think I read 2 questions together. Hold on, Sandy. This question, Gina's question stops here. It says, do you personally have a child with NF, or what made you get involved with camp for NF? That's Gina's question.
Okay. Well, Gina, I do not have a child with NF. That I do not have. I got involved. I'm in the Department of Neurology. I work with Dr. Roger Packer, who is a leader in the NF field. NF Inc. And I met Marianne Wilson from NF Inc. and I met many years ago, I guess 11 years ago, and with Dr. Rosser and a few other people and Dr. Packer in the Department of Neurology. And we sat down and said we thought it would be very helpful for children with NF to experience a camp environment, having looked at the results from other camps, the other camps that we started. And I did an assessment of need and interest in the Department of Neurology. So I probably assessed about 120 families in order to look at areas of interest and whether or not families would want to send their children. So that's how I got involved. Since then, it's hard to get involved with children and young adults with NF and not be very involved. So since then I've been very involved, and we work collaboratively with NF Inc. and Hopkins, Johns Hopkins, as well as Maria Costa and the doctors in our NF division at Children's National Medical Center. So, you know, I'm hooked now, but I do not have a child with NF. Although some of our staff, our main staff, have NF and have grown up in the camps.
All right, Sandy, here's the next question. My daughter is terrified to go to camp. She's 8 and will be 9 next summer. What is a way to help encourage her to want to go?
Well, probably she can look at our video. We have actually a couple of videos. There's the NF video, which I believe you have.
Yes, we do. We have it on the website.
Okay, she can look at that. And she's more than welcome to speak to another child who's gone to camp. That probably is very helpful. The youngest child that's come to the NF camp is 7. So what we find is if children start at a younger age, they do even better because they enter into the community at a younger age with greater hope and make more connections and have the opportunity to rise up in positions of leadership at the camp. So I think that's really important. If your child is afraid, we certainly can have another child speak with her. Sometimes peer-to-peer is more helpful than adult-to-peer.
Yes, and if the NF Network here, if we can help you facilitate that, we would be glad to get the children connected so that they can talk to children who have already attended camp.
That would be great. That's a great way to do it.
Right, so let me give you Amy's question here. It says, what do you recommend to help? Oops, the screen just flipped up. Hold on just a minute. We have a lot of questions coming in here. Scroll down a little bit. What do you recommend to help with social skills with peers at school?
Actually, with peers at school, what grade? Any idea of the grade?
I don't know. Amy, if you're still on, could you type in what grade? Let's see. Fourth grade.
Fourth grade. There are different opportunities. One is sometimes schools will do groups that invite children who are a little socially isolated to participate. So I would encourage that parent to go to the school and ask for their child to be in the group. The other thing that they can do is have a buddy, encourage a buddy, so that the teacher would identify one other person in the class who would serve as a buddy with that child. And then another option is involvement in the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. Children are supposed to be very accepting in Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. So that might be a way of getting their child involved.
Okay, here's another question. It says, does the camp serve children with NF1 and NF2? I have a 15-year-old student with NF2, completely blind as of last summer, and losing hearing now, currently 90% in one ear and only 22% in the other.
Last year we had 2 individuals with NF2. Both had hearing impairments. One could not hear at all. The other was partially deaf. She had an assisted device that allowed her to hear. The first one also had a visual impairment. We have had children with NF2 that were visually impaired, not completely blind, but partially blind, and had a helper be with them. So it really depends on the child and what the child needs. So if she would like to tell me more about the child, you know, maybe, Kim, you can put my email address and she can send me over some information.
I would be glad to. We'll go ahead and get your email address out.
And my phone number, right?
Okay, and your phone number, Sandy. We'll get that to you.
Okay, great.
All right, here's the next question. This one comes from Sharon. She says, my daughter does not make friends easily, but for the first time felt like she did make friends while she was at Camp New Friends. The problem is that when camp is over, she feels lonely again. She does keep in touch with her NF friends, but she still struggles with forming relationships with peers in the real world. What are your suggestions for transferring what she's experiencing at camp to her everyday life?
Very good question. That's why we're doing the online groups. That's exactly why I'm starting the online group. Tell her to get in touch with me about the online group. Because, you know, camp is a safe environment. it really is a community. It's the community, the children's community. And all the kids feel accepted and listened to and understood, and then they return into their real world. And of course, because we have internet connections and emails, people stay in touch, but it's not the same. So the online group is a hope to give more training where kids will be given things to do and then return to the group the next week, and we can deal with the issues that develop. So that is the hope. So she should get in touch with me.
All right, and I'll pass on your information to Sharon as well. So then there's another question here from Danielle, and I think I can answer this. It says, can you recommend a website for general information for NF? Our child was just diagnosed. So Danielle, if you go on the nfnetwork.org website, we have a lot of information that you can just download for newly diagnosed families. I'd also encourage you to join our mailing list, and we will send you or mail you a package of information as well that you can share with others. So I think that would be a very good start for you, and we can connect you with other families in your area. And there was another question up here that I think I can answer. I think it was more, it said that there was a family camp that was canceled last year. I think that's the one that happened in Texas, and that's not the one that Sandy is doing. So you would have to contact the Texas Foundation, and they can let you know about their camp, that they have their family camp.
We actually were going to do a family camp as well.
Oh.
Yeah, and the issue was we did not have enough families that were interested. So we're going to explore that again. It's because the kids, it's such a powerful camp for the kids that for the parents, the kids want to go to the camp. Yeah, I don't know. But we will be exploring that again. For us, it would be for kids that are much younger. Since we started 7 for the camp, we're talking about the probably like 4 to 6 age population for the family camp. Wow. Again, kids would rather go to the camp.
Yeah. Here's another question. Sandy, I'd like to hear your thoughts on social skills, resources for high school age children.
High school is a very difficult time. It's a difficult time because even children who have friends, the friends take different paths and go in different directions and make new friends and leave old friends. So it's a very transitional time. One of the best ways for high school students to get involved is to choose an after-school program that they like, whatever it is. If it's community, some kind of community volunteer, if it's science, if it's music, or dance, some dance program. Kids have to choose what they like and participate in the after-school programs. After-school programs are a very important part of social connections for high school. And it also helps to put on their college application that they were involved in that program. So I encourage after-school programs. Again, explore with your child what are some of their areas of interest. It's a great way to try them out and see. And if they find something that they like, then they can join it and make friends who also share that interest.
All right, and I think this will be our last question. This one's from Teresa, and she's saying that she really felt like her family has benefited by connecting with other local NS families by arranging play dates that really helped her daughter. She's in the Richmond, Virginia area. She's a part of NF Moms Rock, and she encourages people to join that. I think that's Facebook is how people are connecting through that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also something here that we do with the NF Network. If you join our mailing list, we do connect you with other local families in your area. You can be a part of the many programs that we have.
That's an excellent idea. Families connecting with families is extremely valuable.
Okay, well, I think that wraps it up for tonight. Thank you very much, Sandy. This was a great presentation. This will be available for all of you to view again. It'll be on the NF Network website under webinars. Thanks again, and I'd like to say good night to everyone. Good night, everybody.
Good night.